Howdy, it's Jim Arado, and we are leaving Mr. Ed's. Actually, we just left Mr. Ed's Elephant Museum and Candy Emporium in the Gettysburg, Pennsylvania area. We're heading basically towards the main area of Gettysburg. This is, I think I got about 30 minutes of video where I'm just kind of driving around the area. And again, I was taping this for myself. I really had no plans of ever doing anything with this. But now that I've got some free time on my hands, I thought this is an interesting video, and I do have a lot to say about Gettysburg. Gettysburg is just a heck of a town, period. And if you're a fan of history, if you're a fan of the Civil War, and maybe fans, if you're a history buff and you're interested in those things, Gettysburg is almost like Disneyland. This is the kind of place you go there and you're just like, wow. I mean, you are right in the middle of it. And they do such a great job of preserving buildings. And even as we're driving through here, just notice these great old houses. This is just really, really attractive rural Pennsylvania. And this is just a fun area to drive around. Like I said, though, this video is kind of short. I love this area. This was actually our third trip to Gettysburg. Our first trip, we stopped by on one of our road trips. We were going to New England, and we allowed half a day in Gettysburg, and we got there, and we were just disappointed in ourselves for only allowing half a day. We're coming up to the Cash Town Inn here. It's a kind of a bed and breakfast and also restaurant. They were not opened as we passed by on this particular day, but it's a historically significant place. Just want to point that out to you. But yeah, the first time we went to Gettysburg, we allowed half a day and just were really upset that that's all we allowed. The second and third times that we went to Gettysburg, we allowed, I believe, 3 or 4 days, and that still did not feel like enough to me. We planned those days out. We had busy days planned, and that's just 3-4 days. If you really love the Civil War, you could spend a week in Gettysburg easy in my books. What's funny, though, is I talked to a friend the other day who went to Gettysburg about a year ago, and I hear this a lot. They said, well, we got to Gettysburg, and then we were like, what do we do now? And my jaw dropped. I couldn't believe that. There's to me, there's so much to do in Gettysburg with the battlefield, the many historic buildings, the tours you can take, the shops. This is just a great area, and I just wanted to take a moment, as someone who's been there 3 times, I wanted to take a moment and just mention a few of my favorite things that I enjoyed doing in this area. Wanted to mention on this particular trip, we stayed at the Inn at Hare Ridge, which, Hare Ridge is a very historic area, kind of an early spot in the fighting, if you follow the battle. By the way, I'm not going to mention the battle, really, the specifics of the battle much, because there's a ton of other videos and places for that. I pretty much want to talk about what you can do in the town itself as a tourist. And this is a great town to be a tourist. Okay, so we stayed at the Inn at Hare Ridge, which is a beautiful, beautiful preserved inn. It's supposedly haunted. And just as a side note, we stayed in what's supposedly one of the most haunted rooms. The inn was used as a hospital during the battle, which that pretty much means guys were getting their limbs sawed off in that home. So of course, every ghost show around has been at the Inn at Hare Ridge, and we stayed there for 3 nights. All 3 nights, we were the only guests there. For what it's worth, my wife doesn't like to stay in haunted places like that. I loved the experience, and our first night there, we woke up through the night to the sound. It sounded like rocks dropping on the floor. I reluctantly got up to investigate, thinking, oh man, this is going to be my first genuine, legit ghost experience. Well, what had happened is they had given us a bottle of champagne when we got there, and it was in an ice bucket, and it was just that bottle of champagne settling. So I did not have a ghost experience there, but it was still kind of scary. A friend of ours said, yeah, they thought some ghosts were making that ice melt, blah, blah, blah. Take it for what you want. It was a bottle of champagne settling into some ice. Inn at Hare Ridge is a great place, though. Again, it's historically significant. I would definitely stay there again. They give you champagne when you arrive. They give you a glass. They had excellent breakfasts every morning. They had a young staff that was enthusiastic. Cool place. I think, and I think we passed it earlier on the video, but just a really nice place. I think they've even updated it some since we were there. Actually the second time we stayed in Gettysburg, we stayed at the Gettysburg Hotel, which is on the square. It's right in the heart of the main town. We'll be passing it here shortly. It's a bigger, more historic hotel, not quite a bed and breakfast. Not a bed and breakfast at all, but definitely not a chain hotel. I believe it was rebuilt after the war. It wasn't exactly there at the time of the battle, but it's still historically significant. It's in a great spot. Wanted to mention that place. Couple of other things. There's so much. Yeah, this particular morning we drove from Pittsburgh to Gettysburg. We got up real early and we stopped at the Flight 93. It's part of the National Park Service now, but it was where the plane crashed in Pennsylvania on 9/11. I've got some video of that I'll probably put up later. But Pennsylvania is just an underrated state as far as history goes. I don't think people get just how poppin' Pennsylvania is. Here in a little bit, we're actually going to stop at Lee's headquarters. If you know about Gettysburg, Lee's headquarters was kind of a museum for a while. There was a hotel built around it. It was there, it was preserved, but it wasn't preserved, authentically to the period, the time period of the battle. And, the National, the Civil War Trust, which goes by a different name, I think the American Battlefield Trust now, which I donate money to myself, and I would highly recommend you look into that charity. They do great work preserving a lot of land, and I'm proud to say I've donated money, and I feel like I helped preserve General Lee's headquarters up here. And they took that property over and took out the hotel and all the modern buildings around it. So General Lee's headquarters now looks like it did at the time of the battle. Google that if you have a moment. That's just exciting to me, and I just wanted to mention that. Couple of things. If you're going to be in Gettysburg, I think everyone says, I say it, everybody always mentions the Dobbin House, the Farnsworth House. Those are two places. They're kind of inns, kind of restaurants. They both have display cases of stuff from the battle. Gorgeous places to eat. They have good food too. It's if you're going to Gettysburg, when you get back to your hometown, you better be able to tell people you ate at the Dobbins House and Farnsworth House. Just keep that in mind. There's also the Blue and Gray Bar and Grill, which is on the square. It's kind of in the main heart of town. We'll pass it a little bit later. They just have good burgers, like really good burgers, named after people associated with the Civil War. And you just got to go there. It's a bar and grill, but they have quality food, and it's convenient, and it's another good place to stop and eat. The coffee shop in Gettysburg, Ragged Edge Coffee. It's maybe just a couple blocks from the main square, and we're going to pass it later too. It's in a gorgeous old building. It's very cozy. I love cozy old coffee shops. They have good coffee. They've usually got an enthusiastic crowd. The college kids hang out there. And they sell, at least the couple of times that we've hung out there, I've noticed, they have signed books by Jeff Shara there. And that to me was a big deal. And he actually is a generous person with his autograph. It's not a rare autograph, but actually buying his signed books in Gettysburg. And I even found a copy of his dad's book, that the movie Gettysburg was based on, and he still signs those for his dad. So the Ragged Edge Coffee is a good place to stop for coffee and to find autographed books. And it's just a cool place to hang out at in this area. A few things we might pass them briefly, but I want to just mention them because I like them so much. There's a ton of ghost tours in Gettysburg. I mean, man, probably a dozen different ghost tours you can take. I love ghost tours. I love haunted stuff. I love scary stories. But I love a good real life scary story. I can appreciate that more than, somebody saw a ghost here. And there's a company called Gravedigger Tours. And I believe they do several different tours, but they do an aftermath tour. And I've described that in the past as the anti-ghost tour. They kind of take you around and give you the really just dark history of Gettysburg. I remember we had a guy named Patty, and it was just me and my wife the night we did it. We did it like on a Tuesday night or something. And Patty told us about vultures coming to the area and how they buried the bodies, and it was a good, scary tour. And the word ghost was not mentioned once on it, and I appreciated that. I thought that was really good. I met a guide in Gettysburg once. I don't want to go too much into it, but it was somebody who's very reputable, somebody well known, very much into history, and they used to guide for one of the ghost tour companies, but they got frustrated because they kept being told to emphasize more of the ghosts and less of the history. And I don't think that's very cool. But there are a couple of series of books, and I can't think of the names of them right now. One of them, there's about 7 books in the series. Sorry about that. I just hit pause real quick to go grab some of the books I wanted to mention. There's the Haunted Gettysburg, Eyewitness Accounts of the Supernatural series, and that's by a guy with the last name of Wassel. Actually, there's a couple different authors involved with that series. It's a 3-book series as far as I know, unless they've added some more. And then there's also Mark Nesbitt, who does the Ghosts of Gettysburg. And I've got volume 7 here of that series. Both of those book series are a lot of fun to read, and I do recommend them. They're just good reads. They get into the history, they get into the ghosty stuff too, and they're fun. Even though I'm a little anti some of the ghosty stuff sometimes, I don't want to say anti, I think some of it gets a little bit far out there, but these guys do a good job. There's a ton of reading you can do with those books, and I wanted to mention those. Another book that I wanted to mention, well, there's an author, William Frassinito. If you're into history, if you're into Gettysburg, if you're into the history of photography especially relating to the Civil War, you've got to look up the name William Frassinito. Oh, and here's General Lee's headquarters here on the left. We stopped there briefly. I edited out our actual tour, but
excellent, thank you.
But yeah, there's Lee's headquarters coming up. Yeah, Frassinito, incredible guy. He basically, in my opinion, started the whole before and after historic type tour book genre. And he went and found some of those early Gettysburg photos, of the Confederates lying dead on the battlefield. And he went and found the spots where those places are now, and he documented them and did an amazing job. Brilliant work. And his work has been plagiarized and copied, blatantly plagiarized even in at least one case. The man's brilliant, and he's an incredible person. He's reclusive. He does not like to leave Gettysburg, and I don't know a lot of people who have met him. However, if you Google around, you do find out he likes to hang out at a particular bar in town fairly late at night, and if you stop by, he will talk to you. And we stopped by, and I ended up chatting with him for about 2.5 hours, and it was a true thrill that somebody that I look at as a legend was kind enough just to sit and talk for about 2.5 hours. He got a little bit, he gets deep. He's a deep thinker on a historic level and also on a bit of a spiritual level. Yeah, it was exciting for me to talk to him, and I value that conversation I had with him. And he signed, I took in I think I had 3 books with me. He signed every one of them, and just really I can't say enough about that. But I wanted to mention him. Look up his name before you take your trip to Gettysburg. Another thing about Gettysburg, Gettysburg is the home of the Gettysburg Cyclorama, which is a monster of a painting. It's literally 40 feet high by 300 and some odd feet wide. You stand in a room and the painting circles you. I don't know how to describe it any more perfectly than that, but you feel like you're right in the middle of a battle. This huge painting was commissioned, I want to say, in the 1880s. You've got to check out the cyclorama if you're in Gettysburg, and look it up before you go so you know just how incredible it is. Yeah, lots to read up on cycloramas. And there was a great book put out a few years ago, the Gettysburg Cyclorama, The Turning Point of the Civil War on Canvas. Chris Brenneman, Sue Boardman, and Bill Dowling. And I actually contacted the publisher. I wanted a signed copy of this book, and the publisher was great and helped me purchase a nice signed copy of that book. And that's just buy that book before you go to Gettysburg too. Do some reading before you go. But I wanted to mention that. Oh, in Gettysburg there is Civil War Tales, which is a museum that I love. I know some people love it or hate it. There's two young sisters, Rebecca and Ruth Brown. They're twins, and they've made dioramas of various Civil War battles, and they've used cats. Instead of little miniature soldiers, there are miniature cats in blue and gray outfits fighting out the battles. And that's weird, it's different, and it's historic, and I liked it a lot. And the two sisters are very sweet people. They were fun to talk to, and you can actually buy one of their little cats. They sell little domed miniatures that they make, and I want to say that they were selling them for like $5 or $10 each, which I thought was an absolute steal. I even told them that I thought they were kind of light on their prices, and they said they wanted to make sure that if a kid came in, they could afford to take one home with them, and I thought that was great. Oh, by the way, here we are pulling in at the Inn at Hare Ridge. I think that's Sharpshooter's restaurant, kind of bar restaurant place behind us. I wish I'd filmed some more of the Inn at Hare Ridge. I do mention that on my blog, and I mention all of these things on my blog at KentuckyTravels.blogspot.com. There's the Jenny Wade House. You can tour a house where the only civilian killed during the battle, Jenny Wade. It's actually, I believe it was her sister's house, and she was shot at that time. And you can tour that house, and it's obviously something crazy, amazing to see. And it's a great tour to take. There's the Shriver House. They do a tour. You go through a house where basically Confederates were, kind of took over during the battle. And that's an interesting tour that they've been doing. So the Shriver House, make sure you look that up when you go to Gettysburg. Also, I love painting toy soldiers myself. There's the Gettysburg diorama, which is a big, huge, the battle in miniature, and they do like a little show. We like that a lot. And there's also Gettysburg Miniature Soldiers, which is a shop where they sell toy soldiers to paint. And you know that my wife hates it when I go into that place. And I went in more than once while we were there. But they have good deals. They have some obscure and hard to find soldiers, and again, I love painting toy soldiers, and I had some good finds there. Yeah, good deals, good selection. Love that place. Also wanted to mention. I think we passed Lee's headquarters a second ago. We're about to pass by the Gettysburg Post Office. I collect postmarks. I love a good post office. Good, friendly people there. They, people in Gettysburg, they appreciate their history. Just wanted to mention that real quick. Rob Gibson. I wanted to mention Rob Gibson, legendary photographer in Gettysburg. He has old equipment from the 1860s. you can go in and he does the kind of period photo thing that you see it all over the place. Any tourist town, you can go in and do dress up like an old west outlaw or a dancing girl, and they do the old timey photo. Rob Gibson, though, has the old equipment and does the process the way they would have done it at the time of the battle. And I think that is just an incredible experience to go in there and actually do the photo exactly the way it would have been done at the time of the battle. And Rob actually also bears a little bit of a resemblance to John Wilkes Booth, and he has played John Wilkes Booth in some of the historic documentaries. He also appears in a Bob Dylan video. He's got photos up in his studio of all the various celebrities who've come through town and had their photos done with him. And it's a real treat to go and have him do your photo. And my wife and I did that. We did a kind of a period photo where I'm in a Union. I wasn't sure if I wanted to go north or south, but all of my people that I can trace at this point fought for the North. So I wore blue, and we did a photo with Rob, and it was a lot of fun. And he's just a fun guy.
Do we want to go down towards the shops and stuff?
I know he's involved in some other projects now. You might want to email him or call him before your trip and set up a time to see him, but you need to do that. Right now, as we're kind of driving towards the town square area, I think we were having some trouble parking. Plus, we were just kind of filling the place out. But we're driving towards the main square in town. Oh yeah, the Majestic Theater. There's a movie theater in town. It's not something from the battle, but President Eisenhower and his wife, when they lived in Gettysburg, used to go there. So I thought that was kind of cool. We went and saw a movie there just because of that. And of course, there's the Eisenhower farm in Gettysburg. That is something really cool. Our guide there when we went said that most Americans go to Gettysburg to see the battlefield. If they have extra time, they go see the Eisenhower farm. Most, especially people from England, will come to Gettysburg to see the Eisenhower farm, and then if they have time, they'll go see the battlefield. I thought that was kind of funny. Oh, I wanted to say there's a gallery. We're not going to pass it in this video, but we're walking distance from it right now, maybe a 10-minute walk. Gallery 30. It's just a neat little store. They sell jewelry. They sell some nice photos from the battlefield books. Very nice place, and it's the kind of place, not to sound sexist, but my wife enjoys going there a lot. And it's the kind of thing where I can say, hey, honey, I'm going to go to this antique store over here, or I'm going to go to this bookstore, and she's happy to go to Gallery 30. And I've actually had some cool finds there, too. Just wanted to mention those guys. I don't think I mentioned Battlefield Brew Works yet. It's a little bit out from this downtown area. It's kind of a bar and grill place. It's in an old barn that was also used as a hospital during the battle. They've got cool merch, good food, live music a lot. Okay, yeah, we're right on the square. To the left was the Gettysburg Hotel that I mentioned earlier. Up here on the right, we're pretty much looking at it, is the Blue and Gray Bar and Grill. And then to the left, just a little bit out of my camera shot, is the Willis House, where Lincoln stayed the night before he did the Gettysburg Address. Lots of great shops through here, antique shops that sell. There's a coin shop on the right, I believe. Antique shop, a couple of them on the left, and I've had some really good finds there. Just wanted to mention those really, really quick. Another thing, if you're going to Gettysburg, there's different ways to tour the battlefield. I know there's the double-decker buses that you see a lot. We've never done that. I kind of want to do it just because it's a double-decker bus. However, for the same, once you get into how much it's going to cost and all that, for about the same price, if you're going to do a 2 or 3 hour tour, if you call and make your reservations ahead of time, you can hire a licensed battlefield tour guide of your own to give you a 2 or 3 hour tour around the battlefield. Man, I forget the price. I forget the exact price. It's not cheap, but neither is the double-decker tour bus. Especially if you've got a family of 4 or something along those lines. But the prices are comparable, to get your own licensed battlefield tour guide. And on one of our trips, we hired a really nice guy named Rob Wingert. who sadly I read somewhere that he'd passed away shortly after we did our trip with him. But he met us at the Gettysburg Hotel. He drove my car, and he told us all about... Actually, I videotaped that. I'm going to have to hunt down that video and put that up at some point because it was a lot of fun. And I specifically asked... I called the licensed battlefield tour people, and I asked if... I had some specific stuff about the Civil War I wanted to see, and they placed me with Rob because he knew all about the topic I was asking about. I was actually asking him about one of the regiments that one of my people I'm related to served with, and he actually printed some computer printout stuff for me and really focused the tour on that, which was incredible. And that's something else. The licensed battlefield tour guides, they have to pass a test. And if you read the Civil War magazines, I can't remember which Civil War, it might have been Hollowed Ground. One of the Civil War magazines about a year or so ago did an article about the battlefield tour guides. They have a test, and if you think you know the Civil War, you can try to take that test. So many people are selected to be a battlefield tour guide. And those guys are rock stars. That's pretty awesome. I believe there's something about it. They're the only people that can actually take money. They can charge money to tell you about the battlefield while they're on the battlefield. And if you look around, you'll find other, quote, tour guides that will tell you, they'll take you around, they'll give you a tour, but they'll drop you off at certain spots. And maybe they do a good job too, I don't know. But the licensed battlefield tour guides know their stuff. They have to know their stuff to get that job. And Rob, we had a good time with Rob, and it was a treat meeting him. And he actually was an extra in Gettysburg too. He was a reenactor. He also painted soldiers, and it was a lot of fun meeting him. And I'm glad we got to spend several hours with him. There's a bus, actually, a tour bus going out to the Eisenhower farm, which I mentioned earlier that we were able to do on one of our trips. Oh, and another thing, if you're shopping through here, and yes, I hit a lot of these shops. The last time I was there, they had a punch card. And it was one of those things like, you take it into different businesses and they stamp your card. And then after you've been to... I think after you've been to 5 or... it might have been 8... After you've made a purchase at so many businesses, you get something free. Well, the last business where I got my punch at, they pulled out, it was a box of stuff. It was a huge box, and I got to pick something out of this big box. And I found a really cool, probably 6-inch bust of General Lee, which, I thought that was a pretty cool little prize for, just for making a few purchases. A couple other things I want to mention real quick before we're done, because I know I'm about to run out of video. There are a couple of things, even though I've been to Gettysburg 3 times, that I just haven't got around to doing yet, that are on my list. There are historic buildings all through this area that, had some connection to the Civil War. Well, we had ice cream one night, and the little ice cream parlor was there at the time of the battle. And that is Gettysburg to me. There's just so many spots where you can go and have a meal, have ice cream, that are linked to the battle. Anyway, I'm about out of breath, and I just wanted to give you just a quick little tour of Gettysburg, just show you what's going on, and tell you what I like about that town. So, yeah, I hope that might help you when you get around to going to Gettysburg. Thanks.